Method. Welcome everyone to another Intentional Success Monthly webinar. Today we're going to talk about strategy and why your team desperately needs to understand your strategy right now. The first step, of course, is to actually have one. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you form a business strategy, particularly in a changing environment like we've been putting up with here for some time. So we'll get into all of that. For those of you that are new, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We do this every month. I've got a newsletter that comes out every Monday morning. I try and share as much information with you as I can to help you run your business a little bit better. So that's who I am. Learn more at trstimson.com. And again, welcome. Q&A box, recording will be sent to you later. Let us know where you're calling from or watching from in the chat. It's always great to see people from all over, international, everything right around the corner from me. Great to have all of you. Thank you so much. I was sifting through my quotes. I always like to find a quote that's appropriate for this. And I keep quotes that resonate with me. And I just kind of go back to my library. And, Andy Grove, while he may not be remembered as well as he was at the time that he wrote this book, this was a great quote. A strategic inflection point is a time in the life of a business when its fundamentals are about to change. That change can mean opportunity to rise to new heights, but it may just as likely signal the beginning of the end. So where were you a year ago? Were you at an inflection point? Okay, are you still here? All right, then some business fundamentals changed and you reacted to it, and good for you. Our work is probably not done, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. Before I get into that, I need to just give you my pandemic business update for month 14. As I've been doing the past few months, just kind of keep a pulse on what's going on, because you may not hear from outside of your bubble what other companies are saying and what they are seeing, and I'm hoping this helps you. So this is kind of an amalgamation of what I'm seeing across all of my clients and conversations across the industry, across North America in particular, though I will say Canada, the UK, and all the other places where I talk to clients every week. So some predictions that I'm seeing right now. Our July through August window, while obviously we're closer to it, so the pipeline's a little bit closer. So why wouldn't it be better? And gosh darn, it is doing a lot better. So obviously we want last minute work. It's going to happen. Transactional and event orders are definitely rising. There's people who want to have events that couldn't have them a month ago, but restrictions are being lifted. This is a little bit of that pent up business that we were hoping for, but maybe not at the level that we would like to have. The challenge that I'm hearing from most of you is that the amount of preparedness you have is limited. You can't get your staff back. You actually don't need them back yet for a little spike in business. We don't want to hire too far ahead of demand in this current climate. So you're going to have limited capacity, and it's time to have an honest conversation with yourself and your team about how much capacity do you really have, which business are you going to say yes to, what are you going to say no to, because you're going to run out of people. You're not going to run out of gear, but you're going to definitely run out of people, and that's really important. The third quarter, you're going to hit capacity in the third quarter. Yay, but oh my goodness. So events are going to stack as they always do. You're going to have September and you're going to have 5 great shows and they're all going to be on top of each other. And then you're going to have 3 empty weeks. And that's the way it's always been. So again, business coming back and having some revenue is not the same as things being back to what we used to think of as normal. Your capacity is going to run out much sooner than you would like. And it's important to keep track of all that. So don't forget that the pre-production for the next rush cannot be ignored because you're in this rush, right? So our window of opportunity of working with the customer starts much earlier than it used to. We have a lot more things to be involved in. We can't tie up those people on this week's events when we have a major event in 2 weeks that they need to be working on. So that's something that we need to start thinking about. Your team, the core team that you've kept on payroll and kept in your business, needs to be focused on acquiring new clients, supporting sales, and planning the execution rather than actually doing the execution. So that's going to be a mindset shift for a lot of you who are trying to, you've been scraping pennies and everybody's been wearing 17 hats so that you didn't have to hire any extra folks. Now you've got to keep the future jobs in play and working, which means we can't all be tied up for a 3-day stream. Fourth quarter. All right, this is going to be your test. How well did you manage your funnel? Now, operationally, you remember how to do operations. You're still going to be capacity limited. The real test is how good are you at turning down business? You know, did you say yes to the right business? Did you say no to the wrong business? And you're going to find out how well you did that in the fourth quarter, which is great because we need to understand that before we get into 2022. Which again, what we're going to talk about today is going to help us dial that in a little bit. You want to focus on your core customer profiles, focus on the customer, not on the kind of work that you want to do, right? If you focus on the work, you'll miss the customer. Focus on that customer. Learn to reject non-core customers, customers who aren't buying what you want to sell. Okay, we don't want to talk to them. The people who are buying what you want to sell may want to buy other things as well. So we need to open up our ears, listen, grab a lot of opportunity here. And then above all things, stay lean. Okay, keep your overhead down. Most of you are at, you know, maybe only 20 or 30% of the overhead that you used to have, which is a huge reduction in staffing. Good. Keep it that way. Learn how to run a company that has more seasonal workers, more on-demand workers, and keep your overhead costs down so that you can make money more months out of the year. You can scale, you can survive the ups and downs of our industry better. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but gosh darn, is it going to be fun to actually be working again. So some recommendations, like I said, define your post-pandemic sales strategy. I want to help you with that a little bit today. Get your sales process sorted out as soon as possible. A little bit different selling process in hybrid events and in the virtual events. And if you're going to be doing more of them and be distracted by the in-person events that you think you love, it's going to be challenging for your sales process. So dial in that sales process. The same sales process will work for all of it, but you probably have a sales process that's more geared to one type of work than the other. Your delivery process has got to learn to stand on its own. So what I was saying about not having process owners tied up in show positions, delivering the work because they need to be working on the next week and the week after's projects. A lot more customer interaction leading up to the events when we're dealing with production and virtual streams. So it's important to have those people readily available for your clients and for planning. Get help with all of the above. Guess what? That's what I do. Great segue for the first QR code of the webinar. You know, if you're the owner or the principal of the business and you want to have a conversation about how to get your company growing the right way, how to adapt to the new environment, or maybe how to make a strategic turn that you're having difficult doing on your own, this is what I do. So please give me a call. Let's have a conversation. I'll be honest if I can help you or not. And if you'll be honest with me about what you think your challenges really are. That's how it works, an honest conversation. So that's how we get started. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat with you. Now, this webinar, great. Why are we having this webinar? Well, the pandemic wasn't just a huge wake-up call, right? It was a reset for our event industry. The type of work that we did vaporized, a new type of work became available for us to do, and we had to adapt our business models or create new business models to accommodate it. Now, what are you waiting for? Now, some of you are just waiting for the old business to come back and you're willing to shed whatever your pandemic pivot was. But some of you really like what you got out of the pandemic and you want to hold on to that business. I'm not going to tell you that one is right and one is wrong. All I'm going to tell you is that you need to make a decision and communicate it, which is what this webinar is all about. I want you to understand the implications of the decisions that you're going to make and how that affects your business. So I'm going to give you some tools to better understand that. You need to understand your business model and the target customer, and they have to be perfectly aligned, right? I can't run a business without thinking who the customer is, and I can't pick a customer without having a business to support them. We've got to get these two things in focus. Everything else will take care of itself. If you have multiple lines of business, which many of you do, it confuses you, but it shouldn't. You can have a business model for a rental division, a business model for a creative division, a business model for an integration division. Okay? All of that works, right? You need a sales process that funnels the customers to the right solutions, or you need a delivery process that coordinates the delivery for the customer. So figure out what business you want to be in. There is a better way of doing it than what we have done traditionally. Which brings me to reconciling your past. This webinar is about getting over your past, okay? Your team, very often, many of the clients I'm dealing with, I had three coaching calls today, all of them focused on getting the team to understand what has changed and what hasn't changed, because they're all very fixated on the things that are changed, and they think that changes everything. But a lot of your business hasn't changed at all, but your customer has changed. Okay, so we need to adapt, and we need to help that team adapt, which means we have to be crystal clear about where it is you're taking the business so that we can help them get over their resistance to change. And resistance to change, welcome to my world. I'm in change management. This is what I deal with every day, but it starts from the top. So the top has to understand where they're going. They have to lead from that position. They have to lead from that goal. Then we can help other people find their way on that same path with you. Now, I want to start from a baseline. I'm going to pick one. Most of the people on this call, you are probably involved in a company that falls under the category of full service event staging, which means you do audio, video, lighting, project management, maybe some design to deliver a turnkey project for your customers. I know that's not 100% of you, but work with me here because I have to pick something to talk about today. I want to talk about the change in the mix of business that we've seen over, well, more than the past decade, but certainly in the past year. So looking over the past decade, up to through 2019, if I look across the entire industry of companies that are in full service events, I can find that probably about 50% of all of that business on the average is transactional. It's rental plus equipment plus delivery. Here's a charge. Very simple projects. It can be huge projects, but they are still very simple. Equipment plus labor plus expenses. We will do this for you, versus what I would call event business, where I'm not just delivering a rental order with labor, I'm delivering a produced integrated event. So the difference between a box sale or an integrated box sale and a rental and an integrated rental is the amount of expertise, the value of the expertise it takes to put it together. So when we start adding in, systems designers and operators and directors and all that, now we're into the event world. And 40% of this segment was event business. And then 10% of it was just pre-production work. Not that you classified it as pre-production, not that you necessarily sold it as pre-production, but the fact is you were carving out money from the events that you sold to pay for your project management, your CAD drawings, your site surveys, anything you had to do in advance to help that job happen. Well, that was then, right? Let's look at what's happened since then. So in 2020, boom, right? A year ago, 13, 14 months ago, pandemic hit, your business dried up. The mix of your business for the rest of the year changed dramatically, right? So all of a sudden, you told me that your business became 60% pre-production. If you had $100,000 of revenue, most of it was for things that you did before the event actually occurred, which was absolutely confusing because for event people, the event starts at load in and then it ends at load out. And here you were doing all this work for 6 weeks up to the event, and you figured out how to charge for it. Good for you. But that changed your business mix. Your event business just dried up to almost nothing. There were still a little bit of events out there, mostly outdoor events, audiences in cars, right? And your transactions shrunk dramatically, but you were still doing some transactions. And then the entire body of business shrunk to about 30% of what it was the year before. But by the end of the year, you were back up to about 50% of your 2019 revenue numbers across the industry. Maybe not you individually. Some of you were back to almost 100% of your pre-pandemic numbers, but with a different business mix, right? And this is really important. So your pre-production services shrunk a little bit in terms of percentage of the volume, but they grew because your volume grew, and your events grew because we started seeing some hybrid events and a little bit more in-person stuff. And we will continue to see that through the rest of this year. Our transactional business picked back up. We're doing more delivery setups, more rental orders for customers taking care of themselves. That business seems to be returning depending on what region you're in. So my prediction is that by 2022, we ought to be finishing up the year probably 70 or 80% of our 2019 numbers. But look how the mix has changed. It's much more evenly distributed. We're going to have a lot more pre-production work, commensurate with our event work. The volume of transactions as a percentage of overall revenue is going to go down. Now, again, your individual companies are going to vary, but looking across the industry, I think, I think this bodes very well. I think that this means that we as an industry are going to do a better job of selling service. So we're going to move projects that might have been transactional before and bring them into the pre-production and event space and give them a higher level of treatment, charge more for them, make more money for them. But that also means turning down business that doesn't want to fit into that model. So I think more of you will be turning away that transactional business. So now, given this very non-scientific observation that I just made, but again, I do talk to a lot of folks and I'm seeing a big swath of the industry. How does this affect your business model? If your business is run well, your infrastructure is going to be skewed to your primary focus customer type of business. For many of you, you're struggling because your infrastructure is still kind of skewed to your pre-pandemic model, which was a different mix of transactions. In any business model, for any given type of business that you do, 80% of that revenue is probably going to be 20% of the transactions that you do. So my typical client, if they do 1,000 transactions a year, only 200 of them are core business. And those 200 make up 80% of their revenue. Why are they doing the other 800? Well, that's the right question. Sometimes they should be. Sometimes they need that transactional work to fill up their calendar. But if it's in any way taking away from their core business, then they're missing an opportunity to grow. So we want to optimize our revenue and our expenses for scalable profit and not create excess overhead to support the 20% of your revenue that happens to be 80% of your transactions. What can we do to make those transactions more valuable or get more of the 80% of the revenue, make that bucket bigger? And that's what we're always looking for that balance. So talking about some of these pre-pandemic models and some of the mixes that I've seen, just to give you an understanding. So maybe you're in here, or maybe your new model is in here somewhere. So pre-pandemic, a full service regional AV rental business where most of their customers were local. We're probably doing 80% rental orders, transactional orders, equipment, labor, delivery. 20% of their business was probably full service events. Now, if you look at their website, it's all they do, but 20% of their revenue, which was probably 10% of their orders, were the full service events. And then 70% of all revenue is really from rental orders. So there's an interesting mix here where if I have full service events, their numbers are bigger. So 20% of events might be 30% of my revenue. But that doesn't mean that I'm a full service event business. It means I'm a rental business that does full service events. As opposed to on the right, we're looking at the corporate event staging business, where 80% of what they do is full service events, and that's probably 95% of their revenue. The company that I helped run years ago, I mean, that's what we were. I mean, we were probably 90% full service events and 5% transactional business. Event production, a little bit different business. Event production is more involved in concept, talent, design, even content. We help the client get the event produced as opposed to deliver the staging product. Those companies, 80% produced events, 20% standalone content creation, but 90% of all their revenue comes from production, which means when they're doing standalone content creation, they're using the same talent that would otherwise be working on a produced event. So it's very important to not load them up with work when there are produced events that you need to be supporting, right? And so having this 80-20 kind of mix is important. And if you are now in a 30-30-30 mix, which business model are you really going to try and set up? A creative agency, 90% of all revenue is project-based. They don't do piecework, whereas a production company might do piecework, right? So think a little bit about what your business model is, because the challenge is that being halfway between two business models is a lack of focus. It doesn't mean that you can't have all four business models under one roof or under one brand, but you can't necessarily use the same processes for all four, which will affect your overhead, right? So the overhead that you have should serve the larger part of your business, in my opinion. Tom, I see your question there, and I'm going to get to it. I think I've got the perfect spot to weave that in to talk about. Well, I'll pause for a minute right now. I'll do it right now. Question says, we are hiring now, several open positions, finding it difficult to find techs and sales due to people in our industry finding other work, yes, or perhaps the current economy. Thoughts on hiring and how to get people back or new people on board. Okay, so this is the problem, and it is not just our industry. It is all industries right now are struggling this. Restaurants, which are running 120% of their pre-pandemic capacity, cannot hire workers to save their lives, and they're having to turn away customers because we can't find workers. And the reason we can't find workers is, one, yes, there are still people on unemployment, but it's probably because it makes sense for them to be. They can't make the money. There's no work available in their industry. They've got children who are still at home that they can't get care for because there's no daycare people available in that industry because there's a labor shortage, right? And so we've got this Ouroboros of employment challenges that are affecting our employment market. There's not a quick fix to this. It's just going to take time. What I've been saying for the past 2 webinars is your capacity is going to be limited. So learn to deal with your limited capacity. Obviously, you're going to have to hire. Nobody wants to hear this. You're going to have to hire at higher salaries than you did before. You're going to have to raise the salaries of the people that you have to do that. Or you have to keep your business the same size. So if you want to grow and there's a shortage of labor prices go up. You need to be charging more for labor. You should be charging 50% more than you were charging a year ago. Some of my clients are charging almost 100% more than they were a year and a half ago. So that's what determines our industry. Equipment's easy. Equipment's cheap right now. Okay, I'm sure you would rent me your equipment for 10 cents on what you would have rented it for 2 years ago. It's people that are really valuable, which is what we've always said, but now we're living it. So let's get some clarity into your business so that your team can help you execute your vision, help collectively make better decisions. 3 steps to clarity. We need to be crystal clear on who your ideal buyer is. This is not easy. This is a difficult conversation because everybody that we say yes to implies we're saying no to someone else. And that's hard because you're always thinking about that customer that's been with you for a long time or that you want to keep. You also need to think about what your best offers are. What is it that you are trying to put out into the marketplace for your ideal customer to buy, right? We may need to modify them. We need to change them. May need to shore up some part of that to better fit that ideal customer. And then once you figure those two things out, you need an optimal sales strategy, which also includes your marketing, to acquire new customers who fit that profile, filter out the ones who don't, okay, so that you can get the right people into your sales process so that you can convert that business and retain them for future business. So it all starts with the ideal buyer. And if I'm working with any of you in a coaching capacity, you will know that that's the first conversation we had when we brought the team together. Who's the perfect customer? So think about that. What's your best client? Think about the individual and what makes that individual. I don't care what industry they're in, what vertical they're in. Why is this client so good? Okay. Now, once you understand what makes this client so wonderful, they trust you, they're great at sharing budgets, they're flexible, they're interested in your ideas, they respect you, whatever that list might be, what makes you think that they only exist in one vertical? How many companies might have a buyer like this? Because this is what you're looking for. You're looking for a buyer, not an industry, not a vertical, not a specific corporation. Your ideal buyer could be just about anywhere. Okay? And if you're not seeking your ideal buyer, then you are settling for less. And that's sad, especially when you have limited capacity. All right, so looking at your buyer channels, okay, what's changed since 2019 for your business? Many of you have told me that your old buyers have disappeared, particularly if you worked with the independent middlemen, the independent producers, independent meeting planners. That industry has all but disappeared. There was no work for them. They've gone on to do other things, or they're working at the Amazon fulfillment facility. So we lost a channel. Your new clients doing streaming, you tell me that, well, they are executives in corporations. You're actually getting involved in projects, 3 to even 6 months in advance of the actual event. That's very, very different than being called, 3 weeks out. This new business, new mix of customers, a new mix of income, how has that changed? Have an honest conversation with yourself and your team about what has really changed. Many of you owners are telling me, not always in front of your employees, how much you love it. The margins are higher, the overhead is lower, the stress is less, you're closer to the economic buyer, you're involved in the project earlier, you see your pipeline farther out, it's less volatile. There's so many things that you like about it, but you're afraid that your employees who want to go back to doing live events and pushing road boxes across carpet for some reason, want to get back to doing that. Some business models are closer to the economic buyer than others. If your primary point of contact has always been a production manager or project manager instead of an account executive or account manager, you may find that that point of contact is not as effective talking to the chief marketing officer for a Fortune 1000 company as you would like. They may not be selling a bigger scope or a bigger picture. They may be more concerned about the price of things or how it's going to get done than fulfilling the client's request. So where is your buyer in this value, in the value chain? Now, at some point in time, we've all worked for a producer or an event planner, an outside contracted organizer, okay? Which means we're at least 1 degree of separation from the person who delegated the work. Somebody within an organization that said, hey, I'm gonna hire you, Tom, to do this work for us, and you can go hire your suppliers. So many of us were these subcontracted suppliers. That's the space I lived in for a long time. I sold to these people. I was very good at it. I never dealt with these people. In the current environment, what you're telling me is that you're now dealing with at least the departmental budget owner, if not the ultimate decision maker of an organization. And that's a significantly different value chain. This is what we call channel jumping. You've jumped over at least 2 steps of the channel. You've jumped over the internal organizer for the business, that admin, administrative assistant or marketing assistant who was delegated to manage the outside suppliers, and now you're dealing with their boss or their boss's boss. This is significant. This is what you've always wanted. How are we going to keep it? Okay. And we also need to think about what it is that you're selling. Okay. Are you selling a product or are you selling a solution? Okay. When somebody pays you, are they paying you for usage? You get to use my studio, you get to use my equipment, you get to use my people. Are they paying you for a finished product? I'm going to produce a video for you. I'm going to produce a live stream. Or are they paying you for an outcome? Is we're going to engage 5,000 attendees pre and post event, right? So there's a lot of ways of looking at what you do. So has what you're selling changed? Do you have limited or unlimited capacity? Another important question. What now determines your capacity? If it used to be you never ran out of gear because you could sub-rent more, so you could only run out of people. Well, what do you run out of now? Is it people or is it specific services? And does it matter where those people come from or those services come from? So again, a lot of this has changed. And your new best client, what do they need? What do they need? Do they care whether this person is your employee or your contractor? Do they care if the person creating your graphic is in, Chicago or Iowa or India? Okay. These people now define your core business, and your core business has changed. Your team needs to understand this. So when we're going to market now, we're putting offers into the buyer's terms. And here's what I mean by that. Okay. If I'm selling concept planning and execution of event, the elements within that might involve creative design, content creation, technical planning, execution, procurement, managing subcontractors. Okay. But the client doesn't see that. The client sees concept planning and execution of event. They don't care about all the hows that you have to manage to do that, because that's not what they're paying for. They're paying for you to manage it. They're not paying to understand it. Okay. If you're selling technical planning and execution, okay, you are delivering advice, you're delivering project management, you're delivering logistical execution, but that's not what the customer thinks they're buying. Planning, execution, you're the expert. Tell me that it was done. Technical fulfillment. If you're simply meeting the buyer specifications in a comprehensive package, fulfilling an RFP, that's great. I fulfilled the RFP. Okay. I need fulfillment. Am I going to argue about, well, yes, we do lights, but we don't do that kind of light? Okay. That's a different business. And then there's order fulfillment, deliver elements as needed. Customer calls and says, can you deliver 5 of these to the dock? I'll deliver 5 of those to the dock. Okay. Look at how customers are looking at you instead of looking at what it takes you to do it and try to sell what it takes you to do it. Okay. Put it in their terms. Which brings me to some very bad graphics to talk about how to look at your business. Okay. This is the best part of this webinar right now, is I want to break down the different types of sales and business strategies for the types of business that we do. And I'm going to start by looking at the sellers. Okay. You're the seller. We should be starting with the customer, but I know my audience. We're going to start with you because this is how you base everything that you look at. We are in event projects. We are used to getting an RFP. The customer should know what to ask us to do. We're happy to collaborate on better solutions or new ideas. Basically, we want to steer them into our inventory and our calendar, but we are focused on projects where the buyer provides definition to what they need. As opposed to transactions, bottom left-hand corner, these are the line item things. Client says, we need this. Here's the 10 line items it takes to do that, and here's the price. Okay. Client services is scope. Okay. I need 6 videos produced. I need this splashy thing to happen on the screen. I need the audience to stand up at this time. This is the client services model. And then the ultimate model in all of this is the solutions or the ultimate fulfillment model, which doesn't exist very much in our industry because it is not industry specific. The way I explain solutions, and I often call this the enterprise model, is enterprise sales. And the closest thing we have is probably Freeman, maybe PRG, to doing enterprise sales in our industry. When you want to go to war in Afghanistan, you call Halliburton, and Halliburton will get you $1 billion of infrastructure in just a matter of days. That's fulfillment. When you want to put on 50 events around the world at the same time, you're going to call Freeman or you're going to call PRG. Okay? And they're going to take care of everything from registration to the porta potties, to the tents, to transporting speakers, to booking hotels. They will do the entire thing. That is solutions fulfillment. So don't worry too much about this. This is extremely high services that are highly integrated. Event projects, very much focused on products. It is the sum of the products it takes to do the job, but you have a high capacity because at your core is delivering the event. You can bring in the parts and pieces to make it all work. Transactions tend to work from low capacity. We have limited rental inventory. We have limited delivery trucks. Okay, we're also going to offer you limited products because we're only going to sell what we have, because I'm not in the business of going out and finding things I don't have for you because I'm a transactional business. And then client services, we're really trying to maximize the number of choices the client has. We don't need a high level of integration in this because we're only working inside the event space and creating content or production or planning or design for events. So my integration is actually fairly low, and it could be minimal if I only do one of those things. Okay? And I'm mainly selling a scope of work. I'm not selling time and materials. So pure time and materials is transactions. Some client services is a time and materials type business, but it's going to fall down here in that corner. But that's how we should think of ourselves as sellers. And you've already probably put yourself into one space, but you're also thinking of clients who buy from you in a different space. If you're an event projects business, you have clients that treat you transactionally or only buy from you transactionally. Remember, it's that 80-20 rule, right? Now, if I'm the seller, if I'm over here in this side, I'm really about moving gear. This is my focus. I define the success of my business by how much gear I move, which means that your past year has kind of sucked because you haven't been moving much gear. But some of you moved more people and pulled yourself down to the bottom half here of what can I do to get more people? What can I do to do more turns is the top half here. So how many events can I do versus how many people can I keep busy? And then connecting elements is over here. Can I add more things to my repertoire to do more things for my client? Can I capture more of their buy? Right? So we're focusing, depending on where we are and where we want to go, what's the metrics that we're trying to manage to define success? Now, talking about buyers, you have buyers that are broken into project customers. They're typically shopped with an RFP or some sort of project definition. You have transactional buyers who want to see your list and choose from your list or tell you what you want and you match what you have to it, versus strategic clients that say, we want to do an event online and we want the audience to be engaged and we don't want to do it in Zoom. Awesome. We can help you. And then you have the enterprise buyers who are looking for full service solutions across a whole scope of things. And they don't want to hear what it is you don't do. All they want to hear is yes, right? So that's the buyer's point of view of how we look at this. Now, depending on which quadrant I might be in, it's going to affect my sales model, all right? For those of you who have been selling events for years, you know that production management is highly efficient. Yes, you can put a salesperson in front of that and an account manager in front of that, but you're always focused on getting the handoff from the account manager to the production manager so that we can get the real work done and get sales out of the process. So production management is your primary sales model in there. Even the account manager, if they are the primary point of contact, probably need a production manager just to put the proposal together. So your sales model is production management. Transactional, customer service rep is the model. Now, we may say order takers and say that derivatively, but the fact is this is a profession and there are people and processes that are designed to do this really, really well. Account management is what works when we're dealing with a strategic business. We want to maintain, we're treating the customer like a client. We want all of their buying for a particular set of skills. We want to be the provider for all of that. So account management helps our business go deeper and wider into theirs and meet all of their needs. And then we will develop new needs if they need them, right? And then the account executive or business development model is what you see in enterprise. It's a very high level, high strategy, very much about the business deal and not about the actual execution of the work. There are many, many layers of sales and delivery underneath an enterprise account executive. Just don't spend much time wondering about that. So if I have sales, where does their business come from? Well, we need marketing, don't we? Right? If we're marketing products versus services, products, we ideally, particularly for high capacity, if we're selling events, we want to do a lot of lead processing and business development. So we want to figure out how to acquire leads, put them into a business development cycle that converts them into buying customers. We need business development who's not involved in the delivery or even the selling of the product. We need people out there developing ideal customers to come in and buy exactly what we're selling. I call these best fit customers. You want customers that are going to come to you with the right kind of specifications and needs that you can fulfill successfully. And business development is the most efficient way of weeding through that process after marketing has delivered valuable leads and prospects. To get transactional business, the good old-fashioned advertising and relationship outreach is how it works. Customer service reps are always calling companies saying, hey, it's the Dunder Mifflin model, right? You know, hey, do you need to buy any paper? We have paper. So you advertise to get your name out there, to get people to call you, but you also reach out to people who should probably need your services and invite them to do business with you. Now, when we're delivering scope in produced events, it's a lot of referral and outreach, okay? Yes, we need a lot of marketing. We need a lot of people to recognize your position in the industry, but your clients are going to refer other clients because your clients are not in competition. Up here in the RFP world, your clients are all competitors. They don't want to even know that you do business with those guys because they hate them, right? Down here, it's like, oh yeah, I go to those marketing networking events with the CMO of this company. Yeah, I can make an introduction for you. So we want to use our networking. So our account managers become part of this networking process, right? So again, what business you're in, who you're selling it to will help define these things, which brings me to my operational models. If you're doing event delivery, you're a resource utilization machine. Nobody would know this better than me. This is my sweet spot. This is what I've been doing for 35 years. Resource utilization. I know how to set up this model. Right now, there's not much demand for it. Darn. But when you rebuild your business, you're going to have to utilize resources differently than you did before because you need to do it with less overhead. It's not about having a full staff available for any potential business so you can take one more job that will hopefully pay for all those extra people you kept around. Your resource utilization is to turn down one more job or outsource one more job so that you could run a much leaner operation. Operations down here in the rental-based models is all about capacity utilization. You run out of capacity, you raise your prices, you start turning down orders. Operations has to give direct feedback to sales about what's available. This is why most rental management software is set up to reserve equipment so we can tell sales that you're out of capacity. That's great if you're in the rental business. It's ridiculous if you're in the resource utilization business, because being out of equipment doesn't mean that you're out of resources. It just means you're out of rental equipment, which is something that drives me nuts. So use your software correctly. Now, Your operational model in the bottom right-hand quadrant is all about outsourcing. You are your professional procurement. You have outsourced vendors and suppliers that you need for every skill set that you might possibly need to serve your clientele. You need more folks available than what you ever think you will need because they have other gigs and other jobs that they're going to take. And you may have to go to your fifth person before you find somebody who can edit this video for you. So it's all about managing your outsourcing, keeping a nice field of good folks to work with. It becomes very important in this operations. Now, you're thinking, Tom, I've got work in all of these quadrants. We're all of these companies. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but I will tell you there is a value chain of businesses within these business models. Right now on this call, there are people here in events, people here in transactions, people here in client services. I can have a client services business and I need to source an event from somebody else, right? Especially right now. We all source from transactional companies, your wholesale suppliers, your labor suppliers, your freelancers, any other rental business. If you need stuff, okay, your event or your client services scope project, we're going to go source from transaction. Fulfillment up here in the enterprise model buys from events and they buy from client services, but they don't really buy from transactions because they have you to do that. Their clients don't buy from events or client services because they buy from fulfillment. They have them to do that for them. Okay. Now, events and events, sometimes you have pre-production and stuff. You need a studio, you need a team, you need somebody to handle that. You can buy client services. All right. So within a business, if you're still with me, I can have divisions or teams that buy from each other. I can have a team that does streaming events with streaming project manager, and I can have an event that's a hybrid event and have a project manager for the in-person event and a project manager for the streaming event, all working under one production manager, one producer, or one account executive, right? As an operation, as a business, I have to look at these as separate entities. Otherwise, I'm going to make myself crazy. So the application for this model I'm sharing with you, find the quadrant where your ideal business is. 80% of your business lives in one quadrant, okay? Going forward, you want to prioritize those buyers and those offers and make sure they're crystal clear, rock solid. You know how to acquire that business. You know how to frame and package that business to deliver it. De-emphasize, don't ignore, don't walk away, don't fire the rest of it. You just de-emphasize it. We just spend less time talking about it. It's okay to fill in from another quadrant. If somebody comes in with a transactional order and it fits your schedule, do it. It's free money. Take the money, right? But do it intentionally. Do it knowing that you put all your priorities into the right business. And if that same order had come in at the wrong time, that you had the knowledge and wherewithal to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't help you at this time. Okay? That's going to help you get things moving again, but only if you communicate it to the team. Okay? They have to understand this. And this is what I'm spending a lot of my time with right now with the organizations that I'm working with, many of whom are in change management situations. They're trying to execute a new long-term strategy. They're trying to take their pandemic pivot and make it permanent. And they have team left that's still resistant. They still want to go back to the old way. They don't understand the new way. And we've got to straighten that out. We've got to make people clear about what it is that we're going to do and where we're going to put our priorities and energy. You know, why we're not going to hire back technicians when we have just a week's worth of shows in July and another week's worth in September. That doesn't mean it's time to hire back full-time technicians. So this is a way to frame that conversation to help you guys get started. Remember as a kid, you had that little puzzle, little 19-cent plastic puzzle with a pieces moved and you move the numbers around and try to get them back to order with only one square empty, so you can only move one thing at a time. I love that, because you only get to do one thing at a time, but you're looking at the entire thing the whole time. And every time you move one piece, it allows you to move 2 other pieces or 3 other pieces. And that's what change management is all about. So think about your business model, your operational optimization, what your sales strategy should be, your marketing strategy should be, how you should design your sales funnel, but then don't get overwhelmed. Just do one thing. Just take that first step, that first move, that first change, okay? And then the next change will come from the options that leaves open. It's the only way. You eat the elephant one bite at a time, okay? When the client walks into the ballroom and says, hey, everything looks great, I just want the stage on that end instead of this end, okay? What's the first thing you do? Well, you pitch a fit. No, you don't. You go figure out what stuff you have to move to get out of the way so that you can start moving stuff over. Do one thing. If you think about all the things, you won't get anything done. Business is the same way. Second segue, hey, and if you're ready to start doing that and you want some help with it, give me a call. Let's talk about your unique situation. I understand it. This is what I've been living for the past year. Let me help you. Let's at least have a talk about it, because I think you'll get something just out of that conversation. So questions, please feel free to ask and post them in the Q&A, and I'll do a couple more things. And yep, we've got a few more minutes left here. Remind you about my book. The best thing I've done this past year is get this book out, because it's been very timely, because digital marketing is the best solution for those of us right now, in not only in the pandemic, but coming out of the pandemic, changing our business model, being more focused about the customers that we want to do business with. That's what this book was actually geared for. We were going to release it about a year ago, and then we postponed it for 9 months before we realized it was actually the book that you needed right now. So thank you to all of you who have bought it. If you haven't, please purchase on Amazon. You can do Kindle. You can do a print version of it. You know, there is a physical book that you can have, because I love holding a book in my hands. Next webinar, I'm going to talk about organizational structures, because most of us are those left-brained people, is that we're really focused on how it works. If I know what the goal is, I can redesign my organization to better meet those needs. But without the goal, I'm trying to control something I don't understand or can't see where we're going. So I'm kind of driving blind. So I want to help you talk about organizational structures for scalable growth, so that you can stay in sync with the business that's coming your way, the evolving events industry that we're all in right now. Okay. Quick summary. Don't underestimate the importance of the perfect client. It's the reason all marketing, all strategy, everything that I do starts with who your perfect client is. And if we understand that, it makes everything much, much more simple. If we quit accommodating the whatabouts, okay, and know that we can still do business with the whatabouts, but I know who the perfect client is, and I want more like that, we'll put the energy into the right thing. It's absolutely critical. Then you can focus 80% of your energy on having resources to do the ideal work that you want to do, and not worry about the whatabouts. Okay, there's whatabouts in delivery, there's whatabouts in clients. We've got to reduce that as much as possible, and that will let us be proactive instead of reactive. Whatabouts is a reactive stance. Well, what about this? What if they ask us to do this? Remember, we did this. Don't relitigate your past. Okay, be proactive about what you want your future to be like. You do have control over this. Trust me, you will make the turn if you're committed to doing that. All right. Trying to see if I can peel a good question out of here. Thank you for the comments, by the way. Yes. Okay. So the, all right. So the standard question is, Tom, our best client, our biggest client has always been XYZ company. They're 50% of our business and they only buy transactionally. They haven't bought from us in a year, but now they're coming back. What do we do? That's a challenge because you need to decide whether you want to go back to transactional business. But let me offer this. You don't have to sell to them the same way you sold to them before the pandemic. You are not the same company. You do not have the same people. You don't have the same resources or the same capacity, and your pricing has changed. Okay. It's time to be upfront and have an honest conversation about all of that. If the client comes back to you, and this is something I've heard many times in the past 2 weeks, hey, we want to have our event again, the same event we had summer of 2019. We good to go? Budget okay? Okay. It's like, well, no, let's go back and revisit. Let's rediscover this event. Let's apply everything we know to it. Let's update everything that's to it. Your fear is that client's going to go somewhere else. They're going to get the same treatment no matter where they go. If they were a transactional buyer and you just desperately need that business, okay, you're going to look at what you're going to do to limit your scope of work, not over deliver, not over promise, not over deliver. Okay. Write a really tight scope of work, charge for the change orders. Okay. And whenever possible, steer them to the right solution for now instead of what they did before. Business, new business or returning business post-pandemic is always going to be at risk. You need to go ahead and take the risk and turn it into the kind of business you need. So we're not chasing revenue, we're chasing gross profit. But I like to think what we're really chasing are clients, and a client won't hold you to 2019 numbers and 2019 results and 2019 planning in 2021 as we're coming out of a pandemic. A good client's going to say, here's my budget. How can we do this? What can we do for this now? Okay. Have an honest conversation. You'll do better with them. So I think that sums up most of the questions that I have here. Thank you guys, as always, for joining me. Thank you for your emails and your comments. Thanks for the nice words in the chat. You guys are wonderful. And have fun getting back into the business. Have fun being a startup again. And let's make the best of all of this. And if I can help you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about that going forward. So be well, go out there, do good. We'll see you next month.